Hello, my name is Daren Forbes, and with Horan and McConaty Funeral Service Cremation. When I started with the organization 26 years ago, we had 2 locations. We are in the Denver area, and we have a population of about 3 million people that we serve, 6 counties. We have approximately 130 employees, and we serve about 4,000 families annually. We never set out to be the largest family-owned funeral home. We simply desired to make a difference in people's lives. We wanted to be very, very good. Well, that became a challenge. The larger that we got, the more employees we had. We were hiring more and more funeral directors. And we were building more buildings to serve the families that we were called upon to care for. And what we found was that it was getting more and more difficult to move the needle in our key metrics. That is, how we serve families, and the difference that we're making in their lives, the value that we created in that experience that we had with them over 3, 4, 5 days. And it was getting much more difficult, and we measure those things. We survey every one of our families, and we rely heavily on those surveys to tell us how well we're doing. And one of the things that was so frustrating for me was we were focusing on that performance. We took that tagline from Lexus, the relentless pursuit of perfection, not realizing that in some way that tagline for us internally was creating a problem. See, what we didn't understand was how some of our processes and policies and systems were actually inviting inward mindset behavior of our people. People in our organization who, like me, felt called upon to serve in this profession. Isn't that interesting and ironic? Well, what we came to understand is that we needed to start asking deeper questions and start asking, how is it that what are those policies or those procedures that invite that inward mindset behavior that Michael talked about just a few moments ago, in a brilliant manner, introducing us to how our systems can be impacted by having an inward mindset. About a year ago, we asked the same question. We said, what procedures or processes are holding us back and actually causing our staff to objectify one another as well as the families that they're serving? And I started looking at surveys, and I came across one of our funeral directors who was one of our top performing funeral directors in terms of surveys. She was wonderful, high value scores, overall satisfaction, net promoter scores. But she was one of our newer funeral directors, so there was something different here. And I asked myself, what is it that's different about Whitney that she's able to score so well, and she's not been here that long? When I started to discover that she was largely taking care of families out of one location. Now, let me hold that for a moment. Keep in mind, we have 7 locations. In order to keep costs down, what we have to do is we're not able to just have funeral directors at one location and they're there the whole time. Our funeral directors have to travel throughout the Denver metro area. So you may see Jacoby, one of our wonderful funeral directors, in a given day, he may have to travel to our Federal location or then to our Lakewood location and then back. And so he may see 2 families in a day, but in those hours that he had that day, 2 of those hours were spent commuting between our locations and not thinking about his families that he was taking care of or communicating with them or getting, quite literally, the things that he needed to take care of, the task associated with each arrangement. And so you can see how that was a problem. Well, now you take Jacoby and you times that by all of our funeral directors that were doing the same thing. Britta was doing the exact same thing, and she may be going up to our Grant Street location, down to our Centennial location. And our funeral directors are all over the board on a given day. You can only imagine the frustration that this created internally. Our funeral directors were on the road a good portion of the day, yet they were called upon to see families at the last moment. We may have a family that walks into the door and they need to be seen. That was a challenge for us. And so as we sat down, a year ago, we asked ourselves, how is it that this process is inviting inward mindset behavior among our funeral directors? Well, a couple things came to mind. One, let's talk about what some of those inward mindset symptoms were. Resentment. Funeral directors hated driving. And if you've ever been in the Denver metro area, a highly populated area, traffic sucks the life out of people. It will take 4 years off of your life. I'm convinced of that. So that was happening with our funeral directors. The other thing that was taking place is our funeral directors started to hide. And we have a centralized scheduling office so that all the calls came into one location, and then that scheduling office would assign the funeral director based upon their calendar to go to this family, to meet this family at this location or this location. Well, the funeral directors hid because they didn't like being told what to do. And they didn't want to be told, you're at Centennial Day, you got to drive an hour north, go see that family, and then we need you at Wadsworth for a rosary. Well, the scheduling office, they resented the funeral directors. Because the funeral directors are hiding, the scheduling office would call me, and Allison would call me, Daren, there are no funeral directors to see this family, but their calendars say they're open. So you can see that we had this toxic environment within our organization, an organization that really sought to bring out the best in the people that we serve with and the families we're caring for, and having those extraordinary experiences. No wonder we weren't able to move that needle. I will tell you, prior to this time, we still serve families extraordinarily well, among the highest rated in our industry. However, we weren't satisfied. We felt like we still needed to go higher. And so as we sat down and we looked at our organization, we saw that there was an opportunity to do something much different. So when you consider the travel time of our funeral directors, we asked ourselves, what if we shrunk the geographical footprint of our organization? We have to keep a centralized scheduling and death certificate department. Remember, they run 4,000 death certificates a year. We also have a centralized care center where all the deceased in our organization come to one place. It's financially the only solution. However, what we can do is we can create teams. Now, this seems so obvious. I'm not that bright. So what's obvious to you didn't come so quickly to me. But we were able to now shrink that geographical footprint so that we have teams that they no longer have to travel nearly as far. And I was a little concerned. I thought, how do we make this work? What will the people say? What will our funeral director say? But keep in mind, what one thing we were banking on is, one, will reduce the travel. That's what we were hoping for, was to reduce the travel time so that they could spend more time thinking about and caring for these families. Earlier this year, in January of this year, after much deliberation with our executive team and working out some of the finer details, we rolled this out to our organization. Overnight, the morale changed in our organization. Overnight, the next day, immediately, it was a different organization. The toxicity that I referred to earlier was eliminated. Never have I seen such an impact so immediate as to what took place when we implemented the team concept, when we have the Flatirons team, the Aspen team, and the Evergreen team, where funeral directors now stay within their team, and no matter how busy another team is, they will never be called upon to go up there. They will always take care of their own. That is now their mantra, take care of our own. I had no idea the sweeping impact that this would have in terms of morale. They're no longer calling scheduling. Scheduling has nothing to do with scheduling arrangements for funeral directors. That's now done at the building level, at the team level. And it's interesting to see the teamwork that has taken place, once again, overnight within our organization. There are now 3 teams. The training, everything that we do is now done at the team level. We have more people able to enjoy their work-life experience because they're able to take more time off. Before, we could only allow 2 funeral directors to take off at a time. Now teams determine who's taking off, and it may be that we have 3 funeral directors that are able to take off because the teams are able to adjust in a much more fluid and flexible manner than ever before. We got rid of this hierarchy that had been with us for so many years. And we are now able to focus on individuals and invite an outward mindset mentality. And it was just by simply doing one simple thing to our operations and changing into a team-oriented system. Well, I already shared with you that the toxicity was removed, but let me just share with you the compelling results. I didn't anticipate this. As we talked about surveys, let me just share with you the results. Over the last year, since this has been implemented, value went up 4%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but to move value 1 percentage point over the course of the year is huge, especially in funeral service. The next metric that we measure is overall satisfaction. That went up 3% as a company. And then our Net Promoter Score, some of you are familiar with this, is where we determine the likelihood that a family will select your firm. That went up 10%. And so you can see this is having a huge financial impact on our organization. Total Performance Index went up 10%. And then the last one there is the follow-up that we have with our families went up 10%. So we're able to spend more time following up, supporting our families, because our funeral directors are no longer driving. They're no longer hiding. They are now looking at ways to solve problems that they never considered before. And it wasn't something that we came in and we trained and said, you got to act this way, you got to act this way, which is my tendency. It was just simply changing one thing, tweaking, if you will, a process that invited all this change. There are other metrics that have felt increases as well in terms of our financial performance, but I won't get into that because I'll tell you, nothing is more important than the experience that our families have with our firm and the experience our employees are having with each other. And I am so grateful that we were challenged to look at our organization from this standpoint and look for opportunities to change. And so when I listened to Michael speak earlier this morning, I think, all right, what can we tackle now? Let's take a look at our handbook. What can we do differently about our handbook that we might change that? And that it might be an opportunity for our employees, our coworkers, to feel like they're more engaged. Appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.